unbreakable bond between humans and their four-legged heroes.